Hey guys, Callisto here, back with another overlay programming stream. It's been a little bit since I did one of these. I've been getting actually several DMs recently asking something really specific. So I did a while back the stream on how to make, basic scoreboards for fighting games and, things that can be tied to any game really, but using StreamControl and XSplit and or OBS to make dynamic overlays for your competitive events. And since then, I've been getting the question a lot of how to add country flags. There we go. Hold on. Let's get this mic fixed up. There we go. All right. Little bit of a problem with the mixer, but it looks like it's fixed up. There we go. All right, so yeah, I've been getting the question a lot on how to add both country flags and team flags, and in the case of Smash, character icons. You saw that probably in Super Smash Con over the weekend. A lot of events like to put the little portrait of the character in the scoreboard. So today I'm going to be going over some things to add stuff like that. So let's start off with, this is going to be based on the package in the prior video that I made. This will be linked in the description. You can check this out if you want to kind of jump ahead to the starting point that I'll be using. So we got this here. We also are going to have the Go Squared flag set. This is a pretty standard set of flag icons that you use for normal websites, applications and things. It's free. You just come here, click download now, and you're going to get a big old zip file that we have here. You're going to see two different parts. There's cropped. These are 60 pixel by 40 pixel flags. They come in this normal matte flat, and there's also kind of a shiny version. You can see a little bit of a overlay placed on top of them to make them more like a button. But we're actually going to go ahead and use the other folder that comes in here, the expanded. The expanded is basically the same thing, except you can see it has like the extra 44 pixels of overhang here. That's essentially just stretching out the very edge, the colors, and this lets you do a little bit more with image masking, which I'll get into later, to make the flag fit, when you need to kind of cut off certain parts of it to play around with the shapes so that it fits the scoreboard. So we're going to go ahead and grab all these expanded flags. Do note that these only come in the flat, in the matte finish. They don't have the shiny version for the expandeds. So we're going to copy these, come back to our directory here, and we'll make a couple spots. So we're going to need one folder for countries. Just paste those in there. We're going to need another one for teams, sponsors, what have you. I prefer teams. Something trying to fix in the terminology in general. A sponsor implies that they're giving you money, not that you are an employee doing work. So for this, I'm just going to grab a couple kind of placeholder ones that I have already made. Okay. And we're going to make a folder for flag masks. We're not going to need to use that just yet. We'll get into that in just a little bit. So I'm going to break out our XSplit. Let's just throw down something as a placeholder. There you go. And let's find our scoreboard. And our StreamControl. So first off, this is the one that we made in the prior video where you can see that you can pick from different games, and it changes the vertical positioning of the scoreboard to kind of align with the different games. In the case of BB Tag and Undernight, it'll move the logo over here so that it doesn't cover up important parts of the UI. None of that's really important. That all, you can look at the last video if you need to know anything about that. So we'll just leave that on Central Fiction. Let's see, what do we want to do first? First off, we're going to need to add a spot to put the countries. You can see in the StreamControl we made, there's just name, team, score. So we're going to need to add that. Let's break out the Notepad++, find our layout. Okay, so first off, we can shorten these player names, make some space here. There we go. Can also shorten up the teams. Actually, I think 60 is fine for that. But we'll make this 120. Alright, so just gotta go ahead and line those buttons up real quick. That looks a little better. Move the scores over to line up with that last button. So now we have a spot here in the middle to add some countries. So we can basically use, use our team field again and just change the name of it, change the ID. This is going to be P1 country. Here, this is where we designate where the information is saved in the player's CSV, which kind of helps with the autofill later on. So we're going to change that to be field 3. So when you have your player CSV, column 1 is going to be the name, 2 will be the team, 3 will be the country, and this master field designates that the country is going to be tied to the name. So once it saves that name, if you fill out the name with the autofill, it'll automatically populate the team and the country that are tied to it. Okay, so now we need one for player 2. Just copy and paste P2 team. Make the same changes here. And there you go. Those are there. We do also need to add them to the swap and the reset buttons. Okay, just give that a quick test to make sure it's working. Alright, so we'll keep that easy, US and Canada for now. Swap, there you go, you can see the CA travels with player 2. Clear, empties them all out. You can see that the autofill has the countries tied to the individual players. So that should set us on the StreamControl side for now. Alright, so next, let's go ahead and add the HTML elements to the overlay. I'm also going to actually fix one thing. I wouldn't call it a mistake. I just didn't necessarily know the right way to go about it when I made the first video. So I'm using this game hold div to basically hold a little bit of hidden text to designate what game is the current one so that it knows which scoreboard to use to kind of align here. You don't actually have to use that div. You can just hold it in a JavaScript variable, so I'm just going to update that real quick. That is relatively unimportant. So let's go to our JavaScript folder, make our variable. Just here where I'm saying to store this information in the div, we're just going to change that to store it in the JavaScript variable instead. Here we're saying if the variable does not equal the StreamControl input, then change all that. Okay. That's all set. So let's add a place to put our flags. I'm going to go ahead and make an overall wrapper for them first. So we'll have flag1 wrapper, our class, just call them F wrappers. It's going to be our flag wrappers. And inside there, I'm going to have an image. We'll call this P1 country. Give it a class of C flags for country flags. And for now, I'm just going to go ahead and manually set the source. So let's see, where in our directory did we put those? Countries. All right, so up a level, images, countries. Just use the US one for now. Make one on the player 2 side. Let's have a look at our files are 104 by 40, so we'll just set that for now. So make the width 100 pixels, make the height, I'm sorry, 104 pixels. Make the height 40. And we want our individual ones to hang out kind of on top of the scoreboard. So let's put those out. Oops. Here I'm just setting the dimensions of the two image elements to match the actual wrapper that they're contained in. Then we're going to go ahead and take the player 1 flag wrapper. They already have position absolute, so we're going to do top, do it 30. And we will kind of shore up this positioning a little more accurately later. I'm pretty bad at CSS. I usually do things like a pixel at a time until it looks right. Just put them in kind of the rough area. Alright, so let's see if we have, there we go. we got some flag images. And you see they don't quite fit exactly. They're too long, they're a little offset, so we'll have to kind of play with that a little bit. So first off, I want to show the idea of masking. So masking in CSS with images is where you create an image where portions of it are white and portions of it are transparent. And when you take an image element and tell the CSS that the image mask is going to be the mask file, anything that is white, it will display the image in that area, and anything that's transparent, it'll just ignore and not display it. So you can make the flag whatever shape you kind of need. So as an example, let's just do this real quick. So this is a 60 by 40. I'm sorry, let's make a new one. So 60 by 40, which if you remember, that is the size of our kind of, what do you want to call it? Our default flags, the non-expanded ones. There we go. All right. So we have this image here. You can see in the middle, it's white and then transparent on the sides. Save that as flag mask 1. Oops, I messed that up. That should be a PNG. And a flag mask 2. So for 1, our country 1, our image thing, we're going to say WebKit mask image. This is going to tell it which image to use, URL, and then we're going to give it the directory of where the image mask is. So images, flag masks, and flag mask 1.png. And for the second country flag, we'll do flag mask 2. And we also want to add WebKit mask size 100%, which this just tells it to expand the flag or the mask the entire size of the image. So let's see how this looks. There you go. So you can see now these flags are kind of cropped to a smaller one. But we have kind of this angled scoreboard here. So we want it to fit the scoreboard a little better. So let's go ahead and make something for that real quick. This is, it'll vary based on your scoreboard. For me, I know that I have the base file from the last video where we made this, so we can just use this. So let's just hide all this stuff. Make a copy of this one. Actually, take off the stroke and the shadow, and we can make this white instead of black. All right, so this, the whole point of this is this gives me a section that is the same shape as the edge that we can start with. And if you look here, you can see that this is actually 45 pixels. So we're going to need to adjust our overall image size to correspond with the height of the scoreboard. So let's just do a quick. So 104 by 40. Let's see what happens. If it's 45 pixels, that means 117 by 45 is kind of our target of what size we want the flags to be. So back here in our CSS, let's tell it to make our flag wrappers 117 by 45, as well as our actual flags. And we'll make a 117 by 45 canvas here. Whoops, grabbed the wrong thing. Oh, I think this is a shape. I can't just copy it. Let's do this real quick to make it a smart object or whatever. There we go. Okay. So we don't want it to be like the whole super long flag that we had before. We want to keep it about the same size. So a 60 by 40, let's see what that is like when it's resized. All right, so 68 by 45 is sort of that's the rough dimensions, not counting the angle that we want. So 117, let's do, I'm too stupid for arithmetic right now. I'm old, I can't remember it. So we need to take off about 49 pixels. All right, so from the right, we'll do about 24 there. From the left all the way in, this is at about 28. Well, let's actually figure that left side out first. I'm going to undo that. All right. I'm just going to move that in a few pixels. Okay, so there's here you can see that there's 25 pixels here, and we need to take off another 24. There we go. Let's make that background transparent. And then just to make it like have a little bit of space to rest inside of the scoreboard, we're just going to shave off 1 pixel off the top, 1 off the bottom. There we go. All right, so let's save this as overriding our flag mask 1. There you go. So we need to reposition a little bit. You can see that shape much better. Fits a lot closer to the overlay. So for the player 2 side, let's just do yep, so just give it a quick horizontal flip. Overwrite our flag mask 2. All right. P2 side needs to move a little bit further to the right. Okay, so that fits fairly well. So let's make sure when we get this, maybe we bring it down one more pixel. All right, so their positioning is done, the mask is done. You see the names aren't meant to fit in there, so we'll have to adjust the names a little bit as well. So let's just shave off some of that width. Where's our name wrappers? Here we go. So we're going to shave off what do we got? Probably take off like a solid 80. That was maybe a little much. So looking here at our P2 side, we're basically looking to make sure there's enough space in between the name and the flag. Alright, so we took off 78. So let's add that much back to the left side. Alright, so the CSS side's looking good. We have our flags here. So now what we need is to make it read from StreamControl. So first, let's go back here to our HTML elements, and we're going to take out this source. We're going to actually not include the source, because we're going to tell it what to do in the JavaScript instead. So this should break the image. There you go, there's nothing there. Okay. So we're going to need a couple things. First off, sort of like how we tell it to hold what game it is here, so that it can run that check against StreamControl to see if there's any changes. We're going to need to do the same in the countries. So we have to hold the player 1 country, and we have to hold the player 2 country. Now back here, where we fetch our data from the StreamControl JSON, I'm going to do P1 country equals our StreamControl object P1 country. And it's P2. All right, so here, when everything first starts up, when the JavaScript runs, you can see we initially are setting, you know, here's where we set the name, here's where we set the team, here's where we set the score. So in the same spot, we're going to want to put our country hold. So this will tell us what the countries are when we first launch the HTML, so that later on we can come back when it pulls against StreamControl and see if there's anything that's changed. All right, so let's go ahead and set our images. So we're going to use the attribute function of jQuery. So jQuery is required for this. There's probably some ways to do this in raw JavaScript. I honestly don't know. I learned by using jQuery to begin with. So that's kind of beyond me right now, but we're going to take our P1 country element. We're going to use our attribute function here. We're going to target the source attribute, src, and we're going to tell it what image we want. So images, countries. I'm going to break here and add P1 country. Then finish the string with a .png. So P1 country should be US if we look at our stream control. And if we go back to our flags, here, US, us.png. I do want to note, we'll get to this in a bit, but this world one down here, this is one I made myself. I would recommend making a sort of generic placeholder for when the country does not work. I'll show why in a moment. But let's make this same thing for P2. There you go. We have US, we have Canada. All right. That one looks a little messed up. Let's fix our mask here real quick. There you go. Okay, let's. So I think what happened there when I flipped the canvas instead of flipping this layer instead, kind of saved in a weird spot. So let's just reposition that real quick. There we go. Okay. All right, where were we? All right, so here, the first part's accomplished, right? We tell StreamControl what the country is, spits out here. Okay, that's good. But what happens if somebody types USA? The image breaks because there is no USA.png in this folder. There's only a US. So first, we're going to go ahead and do something for when it breaks. So we're going to add an on. So we're going to add an event listener here. We're looking for an error. The error is that the image is not found and it shits its pants. And then when there is an error, we want to execute a function. What we're going to do inside of our function is, instead of setting it to whatever P1 country is, we have this placeholder PNG that I made. We're going to do this for both of these. There you go. And let's try it out with, you know, let's say they accidentally put the 3-letter code instead of the 2-letter code. So that'll give you a little bit of coverage if something happens and it's slightly mistyped, so things don't look super janky when we're live. Because in the end, things will break in the background all the time, right? That's streaming. The goal is to make it look like nothing's broken, or to at least hide the amount of brokenness as much as possible. So in the event that somebody just totally typos a country or doesn't know the 2-letter code or whatever, you know, this will cover us. This will put up a placeholder image, and you can figure it out and correct it while, you know, while the match is going. But we can actually create a way to get around this. We can not have to worry about covering easy mistakes like using USA instead of US. So how do we do that? We're going to go ahead and make a little bit of an extra JavaScript add-on. So let's do a new. I'm going to save this as countries.js. And we're going to make a variable that's an array. So our variable countries. So first, we're going to have US. I'm just going to do US and Canada for now, because you're going to have to build one of these. And if you're running an event where there's only going to be 6 countries there, you don't have to make an entire giant one. If you want to cover all your bases, you can make one for every single country in here. You know, that's what I did, just to be safe. But, all right. So then we're going to have an array here. So under US, we're going to have the 2-letter code, which is US. Each of these is going to be separated by a comma. Alpha 3, you know, I personally think Alpha 2 is better, but and if you ever want to, I'll probably link this in the description of the video. I actually have a really handy bookmark that I keep of oh, it's totally gone now. Oh, here we go. This. So this will actually give you the Alpha 2 and 3 country codes for a bunch of different countries, which is really handy on the fly during a tournament when you know a player's from a certain country and you're not sure what the code is, because there's some tricky ones like, you know, Dominican Republic. Your thought would go to DR, but it's actually DO, things like that. So I'll link that in the description. It's pretty handy. All right, we're going to have a field for the name, have the proper name of the country. And this is useful for when, like, you do like a player card, you know, something where you want to show, you know, the player's name, where they're from, blah, 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 before the match. So we'll have that. And flag. And this flag property, we want to match these image file names exactly. So this is going to be US. All right. And we'll make one for Canada. Note that you want to separate within an array, the different properties of the array, you want to separate them with a comma, but the very last one, you don't put the comma. So that goes for both the inside of these individual arrays, as well as these within the overall array. All right. So now we have an array to look up what the file name is based on this. So we're going to have to write a function to do that. All right, so our first one will be country flag. Whoop. oops, function. We're going to use, this is going to be, you know, our function argument. All right, so for variable prop in countries, this variable is going to be a for loop to cycle through these properties. All right, so we're going to use this hasZone property JavaScript function to say if our array here has, you're going to cycle through each prop and say that if this is there, do this thing. So first we're going to check the property alpha2. And we're going to do, you see here how we put it as an uppercase? So we want to force an uppercase onto our argument. That way, in case somebody types in, you know, US lowercase, things will still work correctly. So, to uppercase, close the parentheses, or countries property alpha 3. And our function is going to spit out this, our flag code. So it's going to say if our argument, country, matches our property alpha2, spit out the flag. Or if our argument country matches our property within countries alpha3, spit out the flag. And then we're going to do one that is essentially the same thing. We're not going to use it today, but it's just something that you might as well make it at the same time. So we're going to do set a country flag. We're going to do country name. And then this way, if you need to include the name that the given name of the country that the player's from in another overlay, you can use this same JS. So let's go back to our scoreboard. HTML. We need to include this JavaScript. Okay, hopefully I did all that correctly and it works. So here, rather than just saying take our P1 country variable, we want to run our country flag function instead. So country flag P1 country, and P2 country. There you go. So even though we have our 3-letter code instead of our 2-letter, it can still match that to this and then spit out the correct one. So essentially every time you need to add a country, you just copy and paste here. I forget what the actual 3-letter is for GBR. There you go. So then you just kind of add the countries that you need. And no, so not this isn't making games necessarily. This is making the overlays for XSplit that you would use for, you know, streaming an event, streaming a tournament. Let me show this real quick. Since we added that thing to force it to uppercase, even if we put it lowercase, that'll also still correctly match. All right, so now we dynamically are able to set our flags in StreamControl, and we're able to protect against typos. And even if some, you know, if it's completely not found, we have the backup image. So very, very difficult to fuck this up when you're live. And that's what we're going for with the overlays, right? We want to make them not appear janky in the middle of the broadcast. So now let's go ahead and make it so that you can change it while the scene's actually active. Because if you see right now, once it's loaded on, you can't currently change anything. It still says US, even though we just set this to Canada, right? So I'm going to go here. All of this that falls under when the startup variable is true happens when the HTML first loads. And here you can see gets set false. So here, let's go ahead and add something for changing the country. Now remember, we made those variables, our country hold variables here, to hold the initial value that StreamControl had. So here, we're going to go ahead and take that country hold value and run it up against the current P1 country. And if it does not equal that, I'm going to go ahead and tween max out. We're going to go ahead and do the whole flag wrapper, not just the country image. I'll show why in a few minutes. Do about, usually when I'm fading things in and out with tween max for changes, about 3 milliseconds is good. I'm sorry, 300 milliseconds, 0.3 of a second. All right, CSS. Oh my God, come on, hands. There we go. Set our opacity to 0. No delay. And then when we've made it the opacity set to 0 on complete, we want to run a function. And in our function, we want to basically repeat what we did up here. So we can copy and paste this. Where did I just put that? There we go. Update our country hold variable so that it now matches the current P1 country. And then animate our flag wrapper back in. Okay, so let's see if that works. I'm going to change player 1. There you go. Fades out, changes the flag, fades back in. See what happens if you throw something it doesn't recognize. And it puts our placeholder. So, doing good. Go ahead and copy and paste this and change the 1s to 2 to duplicate it for the player 2 side. Did I miss one? There we go. Yes, I did. Right here. Okay. All right. So both of them are updating. You can see they're visible when it first comes out. So let's go ahead and set their default opacity on the wrappers to... I'm sorry, not on the wrappers, on the flags themselves. So we're going to make this opacity here 0. Okay. So now, by default, they're not going to be visible. And during our initial rollout, we'll go ahead and bring them in. Alright, so we're going to wait about 300 milliseconds and then spend a half a second animating the flag in. We'll see how that looks relative to the animation. It looks relatively clean. And this is all pretty basic stuff, right? I'm not looking to make very fancy animations at this point in time. This is just showing the concept. Okay. So, the countries now are set. You can dynamically update them in the middle of a match. You can fix them if you need to. There's a placeholder if it's entered incorrectly. So, the overall concept is the same for anything. If you want to add, like I mentioned with Smash, if you want to add character portraits, you add an image element to the HTML. You leave the source attribute blank, and then in your JavaScript, you read from your data entry, StreamControl or whatever you end up using, and then here in your JavaScript, use the .attr function, the .attribute function, to dynamically set the source property to be whatever image that you need. So let's go ahead and show adding teams. So we already have a data entry spot for teams, right? We don't need to worry about that. We just need to get the flag in there. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the same wrapper here. So we're going to have our team flags class, and then P1T flag, P2T flag, and for the most part, we want everything that we have here for these to match. So now it's pretty much the same concept, right? You're gonna go ahead and Go to your JavaScript. Remember, in our directory, we have countries and we have teams. So we're going to change the directory here to look at teams. We don't have this placeholder image because, you know, it's not a country flag. So we're going to go ahead and just comment that out. NeoStep, what I'm programming is a scoreboard overlay for a fighting game stream. If you're going to stream like a fighting game tournament, or any, you know, kind of tournament, really, any competitive esports event. So this specific session is on how to add country flags and, you know, team logo flags to the scoreboard. I'm going to move that one over a pixel. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to set something called a yo-yo in TweenMax. So eventually we want to take the opacity of our country flag down . So we're going to put a 10-second delay on that, so the country flag shows for 10 seconds. We're going to make our repeat value the number of times it's going to repeat. We're going to make that -1, which essentially means repeat forever. And we're going to make our repeat delay 10 seconds. And add this little guy, yo-yo. We're going to make that true. So what this is saying is we're going to take 1 second of, you know, fade time basically to turn the opacity to 0. It's going to wait 10 seconds before it does that, and then 10 seconds later it's going to repeat that. Except because we set the yo-yo to true, it's going to reverse back to where it came from. So it's going to wait 10 seconds, turn the opacity to 0, wait 10 seconds more, set it back to 1, and then repeat that forever. We're going to do the same thing on our team flag image. Except this time we're going to set this opacity to 1. So let's wait 10 seconds and see if this right here changes. There you go. So every 10 seconds, this should cycle back and forth. Okay, so that's working. So we'll go ahead and add it for player 2. Alright, so that one is not working. That's because I think we never actually told it. Yeah. We never actually set the image. Let's try that again. Okay. So we have our, so as long as there is an image file in here that matches the team value here, then it's going to display that image. So now our two main things are we have to make it so that we can update it, right? So let's go ahead and add that here. So we're saying if the text in our P1 team div does not equal our variable of P1 team, which we just pulled from StreamControl, we're going to essentially do the same thing we do here with the country wrapper. Whoops. But we need a couple changes. So first, I'm going to comment that out. This needs to be T flag. The directory needs to be teams. This needs to be P1 team. Here, you can see here when the name or the team change, that already gets updated. So we don't have to update the team here. It's already happening up above, so we can take this part out. All we need to do is make the wrapper invisible, update the image, and bring the wrapper back in. Change our 1s to 2s to update this for the player 2 side. Okay, let's see how that goes. Well, that's not right at all. What did I do? Okay. So that is doing the exact opposite of what it's supposed to. Let's have a look here. So, if P2 team, well, let's bring this down here real quick. Oh, hold on. I might see what's going on. Nope, I don't see what's going on at all. So it's always putting the player 1 flag. Let's figure this guy out. Okay. Let's make sure we're going about this correctly. So if P1 team does not, if the text does not equal the variable, fade it out. When you're done fading it out, let's take this out for now. Okay, everything's closed correctly. let's make sure we named our elements correctly. Yeah, P2 T flag, P2 T flag, P2 team, P1 team. All right, so we're going to go down our line of what to do when we're stuck. First, we'll use the console, see if there's any errors. There's not, so technically I think we're telling XSplit to do the correct things. No errors. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and cheat and check the one that I made before when I was double checking to make sure I knew how to do this. See what's different. That all looks correct. This is the fun part about coding, when everything seems like it's how it should be and nothing works. Guess let's try to not use the swap first. I'm going to try to just change it first. Okay, so that's working. That's working. Something specific when I hit swap, as opposed to when I actually update it. Let's make our swap, make sure our swap set is correct. Yep. Actually, legit have no idea what's going on here. So it should be making the flag wrapper 0% opacity, changing the source to match the team, the new team, and it's not. Let's see what happens if we just do this. comment that out, and all I'm going to do, I'm not going to make it invisible or anything, because I guess it already is. Alright, so that works there. Let's see what happens if we take out all of this. So I'm down here, I'm going to update the actual image source, but down here is where I'm going to fade out the flag. I have no idea why that worked. Welcome to programming. Welcome to streaming. This is what streaming fighting game events is exactly like. I have no idea what's different between what I was trying to do for the last 20 minutes and what I just did, but it works now, so we're going to go with it. There you go. So here where we were already updating our name and our team, we're going to go ahead and update the source attribute to be the correct PNG. Did I finish college? No. I did not. I had to drop out of college. So I wouldn't be playing fighting games if I had an education, probably. No, everything I'm doing here is self-taught within the last year or so, which is the entire point of doing these specific streams, because when I was trying to learn how to make overlays for my own streams, there was not a whole lot of resources available to learn how to do it. So I'm hoping that in making these streams, I can show that even though I might get hung, for 20 minutes when I shouldn't, trying to troubleshoot something stupid, even somebody like me with no technical education and a self-taught programmer can do stuff like this. And these overlays that I make get used in pretty real stuff now. Combo Breaker used mine. I got whole list of crap, Tekken World Tour, blah blah blah. So able to program a pretty good amount of stuff with very little prior knowledge other than just kind of self-teaching in the past year or two. Alright, so now we can update our sponsor flags. They're in there, they rotate with the flags. So we need to go ahead and add that little bit of error handling, what we did with that generic country flag. So first, we're going to add a 2 uppercase here. So this adds a safety net for if somebody doesn't type the sponsor exactly the way it needs to be for the flag. This way it'll still match the file name of the corresponding PNG. There you go. Alright, so that's error handling 1, right? Making it forced to uppercase so that it is case insensitive. Error handling number 2 is what happens if there's a team where there is no flag for. So it breaks the image because there's no corresponding image. There's 2 different ways to go about this. You can either have a default team flag, like a generic team flag, for when somebody doesn't have a team. This is what something like Capcom Pro Tour does. Or you can try to make it so that this image rotation only happens if they have both a country and a team, and if they have a country but not a team that matches a team image, then it doesn't rotate. I will tell you that that way of doing it is significantly more difficult, especially what you just saw, how we got hung for about 20 minutes on swapping players. Trying to make it so that you can swap the sides in the middle of a match and then have the rotation between the country flag and the team flag resume properly is extremely difficult. I barely got it working for Frosty Faustings. I still believe I have a much further way to go before I have it to where I feel like it's a good solution. So I'm actually not going to show that tonight. We're going to go ahead and go the route of just making a generic event flag to put for when someone doesn't have a team. Alright, so we have this. Let's go to our images here. So here's our generic, right? This is our logo for our event, right? We have our logo 1 for the event, logo 2 for our sponsors, blah, blah, blah. You can see how to make that logo rotation in the prior video. Alright, so let's throw that in there. Let's actually add a black background to this. Make this guy a little bit bigger. Just call this guy default. Alright, so here, where we initially set the flag, where the hell did we put that? Here we go. So we have our error, our event listener for our error, so let's go ahead. And I will do a follow-up video if I figure out something that I'm more comfortable with in terms of what I would consider the good solution of only making the flags rotate if both a team and a country are present. Ooh, I messed that up. Don't do that there. But yeah, for the time being, I just don't like my solution enough to be that, for that to be what I'm teaching people how to do. Alright, so let's see how this one goes. There you go. So you can see instead it sort of just swaps in our generic event flag. So we'll go ahead and put that same error handling here. Oops. And here. There you go. All right. So that would be, you know, for beginner stuff, that's how I would go about this. I can show you the difference in code. So, right, when we want to update our flags, this is updating the player one side, right? This is all the code that you need to update both the name, the team, and the flag for the player one side. If you go back to what I did for Frosty Faustings, this is that same, let's see, where's my mouse? All right, so here, all of this is to do that same thing, but a little bit cleaner. So you can see it's like extensively more code to do that the good way. So we'll save that for another time. Clean out this commented stuff here. Okay, so there you go. That's how you add country and sponsor flags. So to go through, you know, the overview, first go out to the Go Squared website, download the flag pack. I prefer to use the expanded flags. Place them in a directory within your stream package. Make an image mask that fits your overlay. White for the areas, oh, that doesn't look good on there. White for the areas that you want the flag to show up in, and transparent for the areas that you do not want it to show up on. Update your StreamControl to make fields for the countries. With the teams are already there, so that was taken care of. Don't forget to update your swap and your reset button as well. Go to your HTML, add your flag wrapper, your country, and your team flag image elements, and we're going to leave the source blank. In our CSS, we're going to set the size for, you know, whatever size fits your overlays. You got to make it match your specific project. So the size here may vary, but set the positioning there. Use WebKit mask image to set the mask as the file that you made, and set the WebKit mask size to be 100%. And then our JavaScript side, you're going to make your array of countries just like this. Variable countries equals curly brackets to start an array, and then one by one go down the line. The US, your alpha 2 property is US, your alpha 3 is USA, the proper name, and so on. And down here you'll have your function, your country flag function, to cycle through the properties, match up your input to either the alpha 2 or the alpha 3 property, and then spit out the string that should be the name of the flag image. Don't forget, when you're doing that part within your actual JavaScript here, so you're running the function to check for your input, don't forget to also tack on that little dot. That hangs people up a lot, I see. You always forget to tack on that little .png because you're searching for a specific file. We have our on error event listener, and if an error is found, the error being that there is no matching flag for our input, then we're going to go ahead and set the attribute to be our default placeholder flag. And then the same thing on the teams. We're going to try to go to our teams directory here, find a flag that matches our team input, and if it errors out, we're going to replace that with our default placeholder. So that'll be that first section. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover tonight. There are other things that I wanted to look at. What did I got a Stream Deck XL recently. So you can see this gigantic thing. I use this for a lot of my real streams. Currently, to run this stream right now, I'm actually using like the little guy still. It's pretty handy. I use this for like the local weekly streams, but I found myself, the way I wanted to direct streams, I found myself kind of going in and out of all these layered folders too often, and it was just kind of cumbersome for what I wanted to do. So I got an XL. I really like it. What I want to do now is sort of show a few kind of like tips and tricks on actually using it. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna close XSplit actually, and we're gonna use OBS for this. One of the reasons why, what I really like about the Stream Deck is, for a long time I specifically didn't use OBS because frankly the UI sucks to me. I don't like it. If you're using a mouse and keyboard, it is it's a very powerful application that, in my opinion, is very clunky to use. So, you know, you have to even the quick transitions, you know, you got to come over here, you got to find where your thing is in the list and cycle it in. I just not a big fan of it. The Stream Deck, though, solves this problem by sort of giving you, you know, a ghetto hardware switcher. So I want to show a couple of, you know, semi-advanced ways to use this. So the normal way to use the Stream Deck is, you know, I have my presentation here. Let's go ahead and drag an OBS Studio scene here. Our scene, you know, game clean, we'll call this game clean. Alright, so when we hit that button, whoops, don't hit tab in there. Oh, hold on, there we go. I was totally using the wrong Stream Deck. Jesus, don't use two Stream Decks next to each other. Alright, let's try this. So we hit this game clean button, and you can see here, our program in OBS goes straight to game clean, right? So let's add another one. What if we want to jump to the match? So the match starts. Boom, match starts. Overlay rolls out. We can go to that scene. This is really handy for easy streams, right? You can quickly jump around. It's on a button. The interface is way easier. But what happens if you want to preview a shot, right? If you set, you know, we'll try our pip scene. If you set a button here, it always goes straight to program. As soon as you push that button, that scene is live. That's what you're showing. So you don't have a lot of options there. But OBS has its normal default hotkeys, which is basically how you did everything, you know, before the Stream Deck, right? So here, you know, you can see on Control 6, I have a 2-shot. So everything's on kind of like Control plus button, right? Control plus 4 goes to pip. Control plus 6 goes to the 2-shot. So on and so on. But you notice, as I'm doing these actual OBS hotkeys, it doesn't go live. It only goes to preview. It does the opposite. So we can preview a scene before we take it live. So what we can do on the Stream Deck side is have our list of our row of buttons here, where these are when we want to take something straight to program. But if we want to preview something first, we can go to System down here, grab a hotkey, drag it here. So we're going to do game clean preview. That was on Control 1. Do a couple of these. Do our pip preview. That was on Control 4, I believe. There you go. So now we can change our preview, and with our quick transitions, we can take it live as we need to, right? So what's more is you can also hotkey those quick transitions themselves. So to make sure there's no like accidental overlap between scene hotkeys, I use number pad numbers for that. So you can see I have 3 set. I have a hard cut, a 300 millisecond fade, and a stinger transition. So we'll go ahead and make a hotkey for each of those. So we're going to do a fade take button, a cut, and a stinger. So this is a lot more like traditional, you know, what would be a traditional television style where you queue up your scene before you take it. All right, let's make sure I set these correctly. All right, so that's my fade, that's my cut, that's my stinger. So you can hotkey taking of the scenes. Note that if you take with a quick transition, so let's say I take with the stinger, you can see down here, stinger is now my current transition. So if I use one of the keys like these to jump straight to a scene, that transition's still in effect. So after using, you don't want to go too ham with your stinger transitions. They start to look gaudy after a while if you keep doing it. So, you know, after you hit take with your stinger, what I usually like to do is queue up the exact same scene in the background, and then just take it with a cut or a fade to reset that as my normal transition. So this allows you to be a bit more active in how you take your scenes. It allows for faster cuts. If you know you're going to want to take like the camera of the players because there might be a pop-off or something, you can, you know, queue up your camera scene here. You can queue that up and have it ready to go. But there's more that you can do with that. So we're going to do, let's see, here we go. There's something also called a multi-action. So we're going to do one of these guys. So here you can combine actions. So we're going to do, we're going to do, where are you? Where are my scenes? We're going to change to our scene. I'm going to go ahead and change to the player camera. All right. So this is here where we get a little more advanced. Something that a lot of people don't know that I didn't know until recently is when Farp made StreamControl, he actually added a host of hotkeys built in to the XML. So let's go ahead and find my example here. Nope, that's the wrong place. Here we go. Okay. So you can see, let's find a good example. Let's find my lower third button, right? I have a button that I press when I want to roll my lower third. And it rolls out, waits a certain amount of time, puts itself away. So normally you would have to do like, I'm going to change, you know, I'm going to change to my camera. I'm going to bring my mouse back down here. I'm going to unhide StreamControl. It's been like 8 seconds. I finally got this rolled out, right? It's a little awkward. Had to fumble through some stuff. It took a while to get there. So this button right here, this timestamp button that tells the overlay that it's time to roll out this lower third, you can set a hotkey on that. So you can see here, my hotkey for that button, use the syntax hotkey equals, and then put what you want. So Control-Shift-G, if I hit that on my keyboard, rolls that out. So we'll go back to our multi-action here. We change scenes to the player cam. Go back to System. I'm sorry, Stream Deck first. We're gonna add a delay about 600 milliseconds. And then we're going to add a hotkey. It was Control, Shift, and G. Alright, so now when we push this button, let's say we're hanging out over here on this scene, and I push this multi-action button we just made, changes to the scene, waits 600 seconds, presses my hotkey, and it rolls out my lower third, all in one smooth thing. And you can play with the delay here as you need to kind of change that timing. If you want to tighten it up a little, you can change this to like 300 milliseconds. But that is not the only thing that you can hotkey. You can hotkey a whole lot more than timestamp buttons. So let's have a look at a couple of those. If you go to your scores, you can set an increase hotkey and a decrease hotkey. So Control-Shift-O is my player 1, right? And Control-Shift-K is bringing it down. So with Windows hotkeys, you can see here my score is increasing and decreasing. So instead of having to unbury StreamControl in the middle of a match when you just need to update the score, you can come here. We will make a folder. Call this one StreamControl. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Alright, so we're going to have hotkey 1. So it's Control-Shift-O to increase, Control-Shift-K to decrease. And now when we push these buttons, my player 1 score goes up and down. You can make a generic save button, just a timestamp button. Here I put the X and Y, I put the width and the height to 0, and I put the X and Y in a position where it'd be out of bounds of our overall stream control here. So that basically just makes a hidden save button, and you can hotkey that hidden save button to anything you want. So Control Shift and semicolon is what I chose. So we're just going to call that save, Control Shift and semicolon. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to the match, and we're going to raise player score 1 by pressing our new button and hit save. And there you go. You can see it updates. On a checkbox, you can set a check hotkey and an uncheck hotkey. So Control-Shift-D, Control-Shift-C. So if we want to go to our downtime scene and we want to show our timer, we can do, we have our start timer button. So how this scene works is you click show timer, you hit start timer, and a timer starts, right? Saw it at the beginning of this stream. It's a pretty standard downtime stream. So we have our start timer button. We're going to hotkey that to Control-Shift-X. So let's do another multi-action. Okay, so we're going to do a hotkey. Control-Shift-D. It's going to check our box to show the timer. We're going to do a hotkey of Control-Shift-X to press the Start Timer button. So now we push this button. Well, let's go ahead and call that Start Timer. There you go. That starts the timer. And then in order to put the timer away, you just uncheck it and hit save. So we have a hotkey save button, right? So let's make another multi-action. Whoops. A hotkey to uncheck the box, that was Control-Shift-C. And then a hotkey to save. Again, that was Control-Shift-semicolon. Call that hide timer. Okay, so if we press this one, it starts the timer. If we press this one, it unchecks the box and hits save, puts the timer away. So now we're on downtime, right? Come to our downtime screen. Instead of coming back to our stream control, just have to press these two buttons on the Stream Deck. Something you do need to watch out for is, see if you're in focus on a text field and you hit a hotkey that has a letter in it, or a number rather. So you see this, see how that 1 appeared there? It's because I pressed Control 1 while being in here. So you do need to be wary about that. When you fill out text into Stream Control, just hit Tab until you're onto a button, until you're out of the text field. Once it's not in focus, then you don't have to worry about it. You see there, that 1 was there. So if we hit Tab so that we're over here on this Show Lower Third button, we can then press those hotkeys as much as we want and don't have to worry about the number accidentally populating in there. So that's one of the only downsides to using, I wouldn't say to using the Stream Deck, because it happens if you're using OBS or XSplit with just normal keyboard hotkeys to begin with, which to me is a pretty normal way of streaming, so it's just something you want to get used to. Alright, so what else can we do? So now we can run the score from here. We can, you know, set a hotkey to be, what is it? Control-Shift-F. So we put on our commentator scene. Okay, so we changed to our commentators. We made a show comms button. There you go. We can hotkey our lower third rollout. And essentially you can get this down to where when you're running the stream in the middle of the event, the only time you ever actually have to come back to stream control is in between matches when you need to change the names. Everything else, you can just straight hotkey to run everything from the Stream Deck. It's very handy and very powerful for OBS specifically, where the UI would be much more cumbersome than XSplit would be, in my opinion. Alright, so excuse me, I had to get some water there. So yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to go over tonight. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I can maybe answer them if I know the answer. I may or may not. In general, you know, this wasn't necessarily meant to be a review of the Stream Deck. I'm not necessarily shilling it. I actually really disliked it when it first came out. I think it was a much worse product when it first came out. They just did a pretty good job of fixing it up. So now I think it's pretty usable. So the XL definitely I really like. And yeah, the cooking streams will hopefully be back pretty soon. I have a few recipes that I want to, do a test run on before I throw them on camera. Maybe I'll do one this weekend. We'll see. We're in the middle of like tournament season. I am extremely busy. I'm flying all over the places, a whole bunch. So those will definitely be coming back though. But yeah, that's about, I think, all I wanted to show tonight. Just the changes, the hidden hotkeys, I think, is the big one, right? For StreamControl. I've been using StreamControl for like 4 or 5 years now, at least. And I had absolutely no idea that you could go into the XML and hotkey things. So, yeah, that's definitely a super, super powerful tool that I hope, if you're using StreamControl in your own presentations, can go a really long way into making your streams appear a little bit more professional, to have like sort of a snappier, able to hit the changes that you need very quickly and, roll out the things that you need very quickly. So, and hopefully this helps, everyone else's local streams, because that's the point of this, right? Like the good streams, they're going to look good. We saw Evo the other week. I worked with that. That was animated by people who are phenomenally better at After Effects than I am. That package you don't have to worry about. Those are going to be taken care of. But, you can have your own stream that has all this, fancy crap in it, just with, relatively medium knowledge. I'm not the most knowledgeable guy in all this stuff, and I was able to figure all this out, have, scoreboards that dynamically adjust based on the game that you're playing, things like that. That is all available in my prior video. I'll link it in the description. But other than that, if you have any questions, if you get stuck on your code, feel free to DM me on Twitter. It might take me a bit to get around to the question. Like I said, I'm very busy in the middle of the tournament season. I will upload this new package with the flags to Google Drive, and I'll post a link in the description so that you can download it yourself and kind of work backwards from there. If you have any further questions, feel free to hit me up. But I believe that's all I have tonight, guys, so thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.